From WHYY, it is Hittin season. Hey there, podcast pals. I'm John Stolnis from The Good Fight. You can follow me on X and Blue Sky at John Stolnis. Coming up, we're going to talk about something that I predicted would happen last week. The Phillies deeply engaged in Bo Bichette free agent discussions. As we're talking here late on Monday night, the two sides reportedly had a Zoom meeting, and I called this last week. I called that the Phillies were going to be interested in Bo Bichette, that the rumor mill was going to start churning up. It just made too much sense for it not to happen. And that's what I've been saying the whole offseason, all winter long, just making this Phillies to Bichette connection over and over and over again, despite the naysayers, despite everyone telling me I was crazy. I've been the lone voice in the woods saying this was absolutely going to happen. So we're going to talk about all angles of the Bo Bichette news, which we don't know anything about. And if you've been listening to this podcast for any length of time, you know I'm full of crap. So joining me here on the roundtable, Justin Klugh and Liz Roscher to talk about nothing in place yet, but some a very interesting week and what we hope has been an exciting day between Bo Bichette's camp and the Phillies. Justin Klugh from Baseball Prospectus. Of course, he also is the host of a couple of podcasts over at our Hittin Season Patreon called The Dirty Inning and Absolutely Hammered. Follow him on Blue Sky at Justin Klugh. Justin, he's not a Philly yet, as we're recording here at like 10:05 Eastern time on Monday night. Some crickets after this meeting so far.
Yeah, he's certainly not a Philly yet. And frankly, I mean, I guess I just don't see a road to him actually being one. I mean, this might actually be the end of his career, more so than
some are saying.
I'm sorry. We're talking about the Max Kepler suspension, right? Like,
right.
80
right.
games.
No.
Yes.
Probably is about the end of that Max Kepler situation for the Phillies, but
man.
I don't see a reunion happening even before then. I mean, the jokes write themselves. I don't have any more for you. You can seek out your local social media thread for all of the jokes you have already thought of in the last 30 seconds. I just wanted to read a quick list of Phillies players who've been busted with 50 games or more suspensions for PEDs since 2005, and you let me know if you see a pattern here. Daniel Stump.
Stop it.
Alec Asher. JT Romero in 2009. Pablo Ozuna. Who is that? Freddie Galvis. Antonio Bastardo. And then last year, of course, Jose Alvarado. I would say of that group, only Alvarado was what you would call at the height of his powers when the suspension came down. The rest of those guys, including Max Kepler, you probably could have made a lot of the same jokes that you're hearing about Max Kepler right now. My point being that some guys are taking PEDs to amplify their talent. Some guys are taking PEDs just to try and keep up, try and squeeze one more year out of that body that's pretty worn down. And perhaps that's a chance of why Max Kepler is taking PEDs and you're seeing, not a lot of PED-like numbers.
Yeah, I think it was interesting, Liz Roscher, who's the editor of Sabres Baseball Research Journal. Follow her on X and Blue Sky at Liz Roscher. I did think it was interesting. We remember that Max Kepler surge in August and September last year when he got that OPS all the way up into the mid to upper 700s for a couple of months there. That's what PEDs did for Max Kepler, was take him from being an abysmal Major League Baseball player to merely a one who is slightly average. So well worth the risk. And Max Kepler, his career might be over at this point.
Hey, it made him $10 million.
The PEDs were a required part of his contract. The Phillies were like, no, we're going to be doing some PEDs.
Yeah.
Please do them.
We've already said you're going to be an everyday outfielder, and we know you can't hack that. So
that's $10 million, Max. All right, you're taking the drugs.
I feel like one of the things I used to love to do for Yahoo Sports was write timelines, because it's so easy to be funny about them, especially if you did a timeline of the Max Kepler signing from beginning to end, including fan reaction and his batting average every couple of games. And you end it with he was suspended after a drug test that was undoubtedly during the season sometime. That would be a piece I'd love to write.
Yeah, just definitely one of the funniest moments of the offseason was the alert coming down that Max Kepler was suspended for 80 games for using PEDs. And like Justin
said,
ending.
It's the perfect
really
ending
is.
of the Max era, Max Kepler era in Philadelphia.
What?
Perfect.
What an awful, awful free agent signing and a terrible, terrible baseball player. But
So bad.
Get this, he should have been better. He should have been even better. Just a little caveat right at the end of all that.
Yeah.
Good Lord.
Now Dave Dombrowski seemingly trying to rectify a bad offseason by making one of the splashier moves and one of the more unexpected moves of his tenure as the Phillies general manager. We mentioned this last week. I mean, I was, of course, being ridiculous at the top of this podcast because last week I came on here and threw buckets of ice water over the idea that the Phillies might be interested in Bo Bichette or any other kind of big name free agent because it has seemed that the priority has been to re-sign JT Realmuto all offseason. And we know that the Phillies are just a few $1 million underneath the fourth and final luxury tax threshold at this moment. So anybody else they sign is going to put them over that number. So it just didn't make sense. I just didn't see it happening that Bo Bichette, who's going to probably get a $27 to $30 million a year contract, that you're going to pay him essentially double in the first year of his deal by giving him a contract like that, even understanding that you're going to have to make some trades and you're not going to re-sign JT Realmuto at that point. So, I mean, I could not, and I don't know that I'm wrong yet, but I certainly was wrong to state there was a 0% chance that Bo Bichette would become a Philly because here we are on Monday, January 12th. The Phillies and Bo Bichette reportedly met on a Zoom call sometime Monday afternoon. It wasn't known exactly when that was going to happen. We have not heard a thing about it since that Zoom call took place. And we are all on our I'm looking at my tweet deck right now, just keeping an eye to make sure that someone doesn't come. There's not a Heyman or a Nightingale or a Gelb or a Salisbury tweet that says, deal done, Bo Bichette to the Phillies, 7 years, however $100 million it's going to be. But that's what I'm expecting now. At this point, guys, Justin, that's what I'm expecting now. I'm expecting the next piece of information we hear about Bo Bichette is that he has signed a 6 or a 7 year contract with the Philadelphia Phillies, because I really do feel like if this had just been a meeting that's like kind of getting to know you, hey, here's the gang, here's the group. Bryce Harper wanted to pop on and say hello. Hey, Bo, how's it going? Oh, it's great to see you guys. Here's the Philly fanatic. He wants to, kiss your face, and then he's going to, steal something of yours and run away. It's just going to be great. That we would have heard like, okay, it wrapped up. It was a productive meeting. Everybody, got along. It was great. It was wonderful. We're going to talk again in a couple of days. We've heard nothing, which leads me to think work is being done. Like these guys are talking real numbers. They're actually discussing real tangible things, and it sounds like Bichette wants to come to Philadelphia. That's been the reports that we've seen also. So Justin, your thoughts here as we sit here on a Monday night, hours after this Zoom meeting has supposedly taken place, and we have not heard a peep.
Yeah, I keep waiting for some kind of naysaying thread to surface for me to pull at, just because this started as something that was very unlikely. You were not wrong to say this was an unlikely development.
Yeah,
and since that last show, there's been I won't call it a week's worth of developments, but there's been some things that have really accelerated this process. Like now, we're having a very different kind of show than we did a week ago, where we're sitting here talking about this, because every single time the Phillies' interest in Bichette was mentioned throughout the week by people you can trust, they went out of their way to include legitimate. This is legitimate interest. And then you get the added bonus of like, well, now Bichette is actually showing some interest in the Phillies. And suddenly you're like, okay, so this sounds like more than just how I was framing it, that it was just some agent's note out there in circulation trying to get something else to happen. Or the Phillies were willing patsies because it was playing into their JT Realmuto negotiations somehow, But at this point today, Ken Rosenthal called the Phillies the favorites to land Bo Bichette. And suddenly you're just like, what's going on? How did this happen? And the answer is, I guess, something closer to what we've been saying the Phillies have been missing could be happening, or at the very least, the spirit of such a thing seems to be coming together. And at this point, it's fair to say there's going to be a lot of people who will be disappointed if Bo Bichette's not in the Phillies opening day lineup. And that just took a week.
I'll be crushed at this point. No doubt about it. I'll be
People
crushed.
who entered this offseason saying, yeah, I mean, I guess it's imperative for the Phillies to re-sign JT Realmuto because who's going to catch? And now that's not on anybody's minds at this point. Catching? That they don't have any catchers? That I said I was uncomfortable with that situation? Oh, boy. I'm not thinking about that at all. All I'm thinking is, hey, yeah, who exactly do you move and where to get Bo Bichette into this infield and into this lineup?
We're so easy. I love it. Just like you said, barely a week's worth of developments, and we're all on board. Because I'm on board too. I love it. You know, it's the off season. There isn't much to do other than like dream about how good the Phillies could be if they did the things that you wanted them to. And my guess is that Dave Dombrowski is a loyal Hittin Season listener and listened to us bad-mouthing him and telling him he needed to get more creative. And then he's like, I'm losing the Hittin Season crowd. It's time to get myself into gear.
I wouldn't even call this something people wanted to happen because like the whole infield the imperfect fit of it all took it off of a lot of lists and kind of made it like, yeah, I mean, who would want to deal with that? Why would you not just find a guy who's a better fit? But if like this is the guy, and if you're looking for a right-handed hitter to join your lineup in an effective way, the Phillies have been missing for so long, then it's like, all right, well, there is a fit there, and you can look for a perfect fit, but these last two off seasons have not been full of them. No. So when the fit is good enough on that level, and when the player is as good as Bo Bichette, who had a miserable more recent years in Toronto with a couple of injuries that kept him off the field, but that's a bat you want in the lineup, and like thinking that wasn't, I don't think anybody's wrong for not thinking this was an option because it just kind of the logic of it didn't really make sense. But like I said, this is more on the level of change that I think there was a section of the Phillies fandom that was looking for, something a little more radical and nuts. And this could really check that box. I don't know what almost getting there and then ultimately not getting him will do for people. Probably just, disappointment. It's kind of the same thing as nothing. But again, all I said was I'll be very curious to see how these moves go if they don't do what's obvious. And I am very, very curious to see what happens next.
Yeah, it's going to be very, very difficult for Dave Dombrowski to not land this plane at this point because the fan base has wanted something different to happen this offseason. There was no appetite for, everybody wanted Kyle Schwarber back, but there was no appetite for hitting Alec Bohm cleanup again and having JT Realmuto do another 2 years. And for those, just bringing back the same guys and potentially losing Ranger Suarez and swapping, bringing in a couple of prospects to start and give you some big time at bats and bringing in Adolis Garcia and Brad Keller. Though, I mean, Brad Keller's great. Adolis Garcia, none of us were impressed. Like if those are going to be your main moves, there's just no juice to the offseason. And not that you have to have a successful offseason necessarily is one that has juice to it. Sometimes the best offseasons are quieter offseasons, depending on what else is going on. Sometimes the winners of the offseason, the winter winners, oftentimes are the ones that end up in fourth place. That being said, this I think empirically would make the Phillies a better team, would make them certainly a better lineup. He is a better hitter than JT Realmuto or Alec Bohm or any other right-handed hitter that they have on this team, and really any hitter that they have on this team, probably the best pure hitter on this team. It gives them a dynamic top four at the top of the lineup if they're able to get this done. And see, that's the thing. Phillies fans are already starting to pencil him into the lineup and trying to figure out where he's going to hit. Is he going to hit fourth? Is he going to hit second? What are they going to, are they going to split up Harper and Schwarber with Bichette? What are they going to do? Oh my goodness, this is so much fun. And then if it's just, they're bringing back JT Realmuto for 2 years, $30 million, that's going to be a very tough pill to swallow. So it wasn't Bo Bichette necessarily that the fan base wanted at the start of the offseason, but it was a Bichette-like signing that will trigger the Phillies to have to do something with one of their infielders, Alec Bohm or Bryson Stott. Might have to change something at catcher. I don't know what that is, right? We can talk about the backup plans for JT Realmuto in just a bit. But if you wanted to make if the offense was the most important thing that they needed to get fixed this offseason, or at least try to get fixed this offseason, you couldn't have asked for a better player, Liz, than Bo Bichette. Not only because he does so many things that the Phillies don't do well, which is to walk a little bit, put his bat on the ball, get a ton of hits, hit the ball hard pretty much every time up and not strike out a ton. He's also young. This team needed to get younger. He turns 28 in March. So he has 3-4 years of his prime left in front of him. That's the only reason that the Phillies are interested in him and say they weren't in Alex Bregman, right? Who's 4 years older than Bo Bichette. So it's going to be, I just think Dave Dombrowski's got to land the plane here, Liz. I just don't see how he cannot at this point.
He's on a plane of Phillies fans. And he's the only one who's landed the plane ever before, and they're all yelling at him, land the plane, over there on that runway that says Bo Bichette on it. And so he doesn't have much of a choice. And I think the fan base is so into this because it represents actual meaningful change. The Phillies have a small list of places where they can get a list of positions where they can get appreciably better. You know, there aren't a ton of great outfielders out there for them to get. So they had to sort of figure out what they're going to do there. But Bo Bichette represents like actual meaningful offensive upgrade. And that's just, Kyle Schwarber was great, but that was about maintaining. Right. And when the team doesn't make it, people do want meaningful change. And no matter how bad the bullpen is, everyone's always going to look at the offense and be like, why? Like, if you have a good offense, you can hit your way out of anything. You can win any game. If you have an offense that can click in, you don't have to worry too much about, you know, your late inning reliever blowing it and then not being able to do much. And that's, I think, what Phillies fans are looking for. They're looking for someone who can actually upgrade the lineup. And this definitely represents that. It was going to be hard to find someone else who would. And like, this does seem like a no-brainer. We were all saying no for sensible reasons. But, you know, now that the seal has been broken, we can all say, no, this does actually make a ton of sense. Now that we're all able to talk about it without seeming like we're crazy. This makes a ton of sense for the Phillies. Just
John,
do it. I was going to say, last year they tried really hard to stand a luxury tax. What good was that for, if not for to go big this year?
And John, you brought up a part of this that I felt it's become. I like that this is an important aspect of this. Dave Dombrowski said, according to a Scott Lauber story, that we need to start working our young players into our roster. We have good young players, and we'll be better for it. I do think that good organizations can blend young players with veterans. This is an aspect of signing guys to long-term deals that often gets lost, I think, among fans. There's this kind of like surrender or I guess more of a spiral that teams can wind up in when they've got too many guys locked into long-term deals like the Phillies have with like 10-year plus deals. You don't need too many of them for them to start getting a little heavy. And even if you're a free spending team, they can start being, you know, part of the reason why maybe you're playing a little more carefully recently. But yeah, there's a reason some teams don't offer deals like that, and it's because you get to the part that the Phillies are in with some of these guys, with Harper and Schwarber. They're both 33. Turner and Nola are going to turn 33 this year, where Lauber referred to them as aging but not old. Now, like that's not the end game for any of these guys. But, you know, you do have issues like what's been going on between Harper and Dombrowski because of the kind of year he had. And you just start to see signs that like these deals, you know, they're starting to show their age. So you want to be able to mix in younger players and have people that have younger players, people to latch onto, for the team to latch onto, for there to just be like, hey, here's some guys that are still, you know, closer to the end than the beginning, or perhaps are still in their prime, still have a big chunk of their prime left, and they're still going to be effective for you for years to come. And they can carry what those guys on those longer term deals are maybe not as able to carry anymore, and just keep the team in contention, even though their long term deals are hitting their midpoints and going into their second halves. That can wind up being a really tricky spot for a team to be in. So to hear Dombrowski start talking about like the young players like this, and by start I mean continue to talk about the young players like this, it's really refreshing, and it also makes it clear that I think this year, you know, unlike last year where we were getting hints of these top three prospects playing a key role, you're getting like kind of more formal statements that like this guy is going to be a part of the equation. And for Crawford, Painter, and I guess Miller too, like to have really good chances of being on the opening day roster, depending on what happens, that's huge for the Phillies. But so is the development of Stott, and so is the development of Marsh, both of whom finished last year really strong. But just to take the most circuitous route back to my point, Bichette also fits into that for the reason you said, that like you got this 27-year-old free agent who obviously is going to cost a lot more than any of the names I said, but you're willing to spend that money because he feeds into your plan. Your overall concern that like, yeah, look, we're a good team that's getting older. Let's get some younger guys in here too who can play, who aren't just like, yeah, okay, they're also here and they're not, they're not of that part of their careers. No, they're actually, more star power, more guys who can help your team. And let's keep this cycle going. Let's not just let it die out so then there's a period where we got to like bottom out and rebuild. No, let's keep this train chugging so that, we can be that franchise that we keep saying that the Phillies have seemingly upped their game to being, a team that is never too far from contention, even when they're not directly in it. So I think that's a really good aspect of all of this. I do just continue to have question marks about like how exactly you move around the infield to create space for Bo Bichette, who again the Phillies have not officially signed yet. But other than that, I like what this does for the Phillies in the future too.
By the way, Bo Bichette is about a year and 3 months younger than Alec Bohm, and he is 5 months younger than Bryson Stott. Just so we're kind of all aware of what kind of, the age of this player we're talking about. We were talking about those two guys as part of the daycare 2 years ago. Bo Bichette is younger than both of those guys, as the Phillies consider bringing him on board for a free agent contract. And I think we should kind of, before we get into like what the Phillies would do once they get Bo Bichette, because I think it's an important question. The team, they're going to have to make some moves. That's one of the reasons why adding an infielder was trickier at the start of the offseason, because it does necessitate the Phillies doing some things and moving on from some familiar faces, which, again, I think the fan base is ready to do. Alex Bregman's contract with the Cubs, and again, he's 32, so I think he's 4 years older. He got 5 years for $175 million. That's $35 million a year average annual value. I think that's a lot of money to pay Alex Bregman on a yearly basis. That's more than I would have been prepared to give up. I'm curious what you guys think Bo Bichette
Cubs really want to look like
get.
They're spending money.
Well, the Cubs are spending money. I don't know that they're looking like they want to spend money. They are spending money this time around. Yeah, they are spending money. It took them a while, but they're doing it now. I'm curious what kind of contract you guys think Bo Bichette would get. And I'm going to throw out a number. You guys tell me whether it's going to be higher or lower in terms of years and money. I'm going to say $27 million a year average annual value for 7 years. So instead of like comparing to Bregman's getting 35, I'm going to say Bichette gets 27 million over 7 years, 2 additional years. So 7 for 189. That's the number that I have for Bichette, $27 million. I feel like I might be under on the AAV, but that's where I'm kind of setting it right now. Justin, over or under on either of those numbers? What do you think of that?
I think you're right smack dab in the middle of where I would have put it. I would have ballparked it at 25-30 a year. So if we're thinking that's a little under, I'll go up to like, let's say it's 20, I'll just say 28 a year for, I'm 6, 7, I'd get 7 years probably. Yeah, that feels healthy to me.
Liz, what do you think?
I would feel more comfortable with 6 years with like a seventh as an option year, either for the Phillies or a mutual option. I'd be willing to go 6 at a higher annual value. So if like we're really concerned about, what did you say, 27 being too little, and if 30 we think is probably around the right number-ish, 30, I would say probably like 32, 33, $34 million a year for 6 years, something like that.
Is there a chance him being so young, he's willing to take like a 3-year deal and just re-enter free agency again, like right around turning 30?
Maybe. It depends on what kind of suitors are out there in addition to the Phillies. Like if the Red Sox, and I think right now the Red Sox are the Phillies' biggest competition for Bo Bichette after losing out on Alex Bregman.
I want to talk about the Red Sox.
Yeah, we should.
Can we please?
But I think the fact that they didn't want to go as high as 175 for Bregman, I don't know why they would go more years at a similar AAV for Bo Bichette.
They don't like years. They don't like more than 3 years. They don't like giving them out. Craig Breslow's just not. He's a careful guy. All right, he's a careful guy. And this Bregman deal. Hey, look, we all don't. I mean, I don't know if I speak for all of us, but when Bregman's come up on the show, we've all been like pass. For the most part, I really don't dig too deep into why. obviously, Astros and that whole situation leaves a bad taste in your mouth in some cases. I know some people just got over it and don't care, and that's fine too. But like even somebody like me, you got to be able to look at Alex Bregman and say, yes, he is not the player he used to be. However, he is still a very, very good player, a very good hitter, rebounded from a career low walk rate last year, makes a ton of contact. He missed 6 weeks with a right quad strain, but was still an all-star and gives you great defense at third base. That's and across the board, everybody who's played with him is just like, this is the guy you have in your locker room. This is a great guy, wonderful guy, like awesome teammate. People in the Red Sox were openly advocating to bring him back, and obviously that didn't happen. But yeah, even a guy who's like on the other side of it is still very good. So I mean, you got to at least give him that. And now the Cubs are in a position where they can keep Nico Horner and Matt Shaw and just put them in more appropriate roles, and the Cubs just feel like they're a little better off. Meanwhile, the Red Sox, I'm quoting, did not come close financially and were not willing to give a full no trade clause, which was part of Bregman's deal. No loss of draft pick also by signing him. So that was just a wonderful deal for the Cubs to make. And the main thing about the Red Sox is that Kyle Tucker and Cody Bellinger, if you look in these last 4 big hitters, Bo Bichette, Bellinger, Tucker, and Bregman, Tucker and Bellinger are both lefties. The Red Sox have too many lefties already. They are stacked to death with lefties. And obviously the Yankees and Bellinger, they're at an impasse, but they're so wound up in each other that it feels, unlikely that he would go to the Red Sox. Bregman goes to Chicago, and let's say the Phillies get Bichette. Red Sox just miss on a hitter. Again, their fans watch Rafael Devers go to San Francisco, and then they get Bregman. Okay, well, at least there's Bregman. He signs a 3-year deal. He's gone after 1 year. And Craig Breslow, the Red Sox GM, is just left standing there going like, well, I guess it's all part of a very smart plan that I can't explain yet, but it starts next year. It's not the best look, I would say. For some teams like the Blue Jays and Cubs to be really racking it up this offseason, the Red Sox are not having a great winter.
Go ahead, Liz.
I was going to say an Ivy League degree does not mean you can run a baseball team. Man, that is something that baseball has had to learn the hard way, and I don't understand why the Red Sox are still having to learn it. Like, everybody knows now that just because a baseball player has one of those fancy degrees doesn't mean he's going to know what to do when he gets behind a desk. Like, we can all enjoy watching Craig Breslow run the Red Sox directly into the ground.
I'll say what would be hilarious is once the Phillies sign Bo Bichette, maybe Dave Dombrowski's calling his old buddies in Boston, saying like, hey, I got a third baseman that we need to move. He's on the last year of his deal before he becomes a free agent. It's a 1-year deal. There's Alec Bohm to Boston slides right into that hole that they would need if they don't want to sign Bo Bichette, and they're afraid of spending all that kind of money. Bo Bichette comes to Philadelphia, man, I am on the horn to Boston talking to them about a possible Alec Bohm trade. I think if the Phillies are going to move Alec Bohm, that's a great fit. I don't know what the return would be.
Too much sense.
Yeah.
They need a guy who can play third and first. And, again, Bohm checks that box. They're going to be doing hitter? Something. Yeah, right-handed hitter. They're going to be doing something underwhelming, which, apologies to Alec Bohm, but, an Alec Bohm signing after having Alex Bregman and Rafael Devers play that position is underwhelming. But, like, I just opened the notes doc that started the offseason where I have my trade for Mackenzie Gore blueprint, and I have my potential trade with the Red Sox of trading Alec Bohm and Brandon Marsh for 2 outfielders as a potential deal, because early on it was the Red Sox were spotted as a team that's a team that could take Alec Bohm, and if they're playing catch up, you might be able to catch him in a vulnerable spot where you're like, all right, yeah, we need a third baseman. Like, great, cool, we have a third baseman. You may have him.
I think let's talk a little bit about if the Phillies sign Bo Bichette, what do they do? Who gets moved? They got to figure some things out. We've been talking about Alec Bohm, and there's a couple different options here. And you guys kind of tell me what you think of these different things. What would be your preference? So the first is the most obvious, and that's they trade Alec Bohm. It seems as though The option there would be to slide Bryson Stott to third base, which is the position he played when he first got called up to the Phillies at the start of the 2022 season. He can play third base. He's got a good arm. He can actually play there. Bichette has also played some third base in the past. Bichette has more experience at second base, but it sounds like there'd be one of those guys is playing third, one of those guys is playing second. Not really clear who that would be. But you move Alec Bohm, you keep Bryson Stott, who's a younger player, gives you more defensively, and he doesn't cost you quite as much. You move the higher salaried player, who also is going to be a free agent at the end of this year. You could also then instead decide to trade Bryson Stott. He makes less money than Bohm. He has an extra year of team control, which means free agency is 2 years away. He has more defensive value, and there seems to be an upside with the bat that everybody keeps believing in that I'm not sure is there, but people keep believing in it and talking about it. And, he's still somewhat young-ish. He's younger than Alec Bohm is by a little over a year, too. Maybe the Phillies would trade Stott, get a little bit more back, because I think Stott might have more trade value than Alec Bohm. I don't know if you guys agree with that or not, but I
agree with that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think Stott has more trade value than Bohm, and that would make it pretty easy. You keep Bohm at third base, you keep Bichette at second base, and suddenly you've got a pretty solid right-handed hitting lineup there. And then I saw Ty Daubert over at Phillies Nation made the point that if the Phillies trade Stott, they should also trade Edmundo Sosa someplace, because with Bohm, Bichette, and Turner, suddenly Sosa is not going to get a chance to play. He's a right-handed bat in an infield filled with right-handed bats. You would probably need to go out and get a left-handed utility infielder who can play shortstop, but at that point, you don't really need Sosa. He's not coming in to spell Bryson Stott against left-handed pitching. So the money is a wash. Like if you move Stott and Sosa, you save $10.3 million. If you move Bohm, you save $10.2 million. So you move two guys off of your roster, and you could go out and you could get a left-handed reserve infielder, or maybe there's somebody in the minors who could do that. I don't know. And then I'll get to the Aidan Miller stuff in just a second. I will say I think it was John Morosi speculate. Could this mean Bryce Harper moves to the outfield and you could put Bohm at first base and have Bichette play third base? And I'm just like, brother, man, we've been going to stance. We've been doing this for a while. Bryce Harper ain't going back to the outfield. People are trying to manifest that. And
no, he's done.
He's not playing the outfield again. So what's your preference, Liz, in terms of those trade options? Does the one particularly strike you as better than the other?
I don't want to get rid of Bryson Stott. I like him, and I think he has long-term value, at least until they, have a younger player who could do better. And I don't think they have that at the moment, and they may not for a while, considering their other needs. So I'm all for trading Alec Bohm. I'm ready to be done with him. I think I've given him many, many chances, and you know what? I don't know if I'm here for it again for 2026.
Justin, what do you think?
I mean, it really does. You just got to open the door, behind Bohm, and open the door behind Stott, and figure out what people are willing to get, like what value, how they're being valued by the teams you're looking to trade them to. Because I feel like there's a chance that it's maybe closer because one team's willing to overpay for a guy. You never know, you're catching a team in a desperate spot. But I guess what I'm saying is looking at where people could play and who should be playing where. Turner played a pretty terrific shortstop last year. He bounced back from those defensive accusations that he was falling off. Mm-hmm. But any talk about Turner is about him moving, to
the outfield
towards first base, or to the outfield potentially, or over towards second base, or to second base, not to third base. That's like where you're probably not putting him. And Bichette, if he comes here, I don't want to have to sit here for 2-3 months talking about how he can't hit because of the stress of learning this new position he's never played. Yeah. I don't want to go through all that. I would rather just have a spot that he's comfortable playing, ready for him to fill, and just, go to town, hit the ball. That's just an aspect I feel like you can skip over entirely. And so if Stott can play third, obviously Bohm can play third, but if Stott can play third, then, you kind of have that position locked down no matter which one of them you trade, but it's got to be one of them at third. And Stott's he's a natural fielder and defender, and he's got the best arm, and that's all you hear about, like, guys in the infield who can't play third. It's like, oh, he doesn't have the arm to stick it short, doesn't have the arm to stick over there. Stott's still got that arm. So I would feel good with a Stott, Turner, Bichette, third base to second base, and just seeing what you can get for Bohm, because I think the market is alive for Bohm. I think the Red Sox wouldn't be the only team shut out of that hitters market, and perhaps teams would be, secretly more excited to not have to pay for a big free agent and settle for a guy like Alec Bohm. Right. But then again, I do think instinctively you would probably get more for Stott on the trade market. And if you're also trading Sosa, then, again, who knows what you can turn up.
I mean, I'm thinking, like, is there a way you could pry a young catcher from someone for Bryson Stott that could also serve to fix your need at catcher? If you're not signing JT Realmuto, that would be the avenue that I would consider Bryson Stott. Like, if you can dangle Stott and you can get Ryan Jeffers, or you can get, a different young catcher from, like, I forget who the Mariners backup was, or no, the Mariners traded the backup.
Harry Ford, yeah, he's with the Nationals now.
Went to the Nationals, but the Dodgers of a kid, Dalton Rushing, is that was his name? I'm trying to remember. Yeah, I think that one. Forgive me, I know that I did a whole bunch of research on him like 2 months ago, and the names are all flew out of my head. But there are young catchers out there you could trade for, and maybe Bryson Stott is what gets you one of those guys. I will say I think the team is better defensively with Bryson Stott. I think the lineup's a little bit more balanced with Bryson Stott. I think it makes you better as a Phillies team for 2026 outside of the catcher position. The only way I would choose Stott over Bohm is if you can maybe get a young catcher that you can plug into the starting lineup and have somebody to grow that at that position for you over the next few years. So it gets you younger at catcher, gets you younger in the infield, and it kind of sets things up sets you up for the future as well. But that's a couple other steps down the line a little bit. The other question here is what that means for Aidan Miller. You mentioned him a few minutes ago, Justin, and he is the team's top hitting prospect. If they do sign Bo Bichette, it means they don't have to rush him. It means he can stay in AAA for as long as he needs to this year to get comfortable. If they want to start teaching him how to play corner outfield, I know I don't want to take him off a position like shortstop because great hitting shortstops are very rare in this league. So I don't want to rob that development. But if the infield is going to be set for the next few years, then Aidan Miller's easiest path to the majors is learning left field or right field. Like it just is. And so I'm guessing this would mean if they sign Bo Bichette, the likelihood we see Aidan Miller in 2026 lessens significantly unless he's learning to play outfield and the Phillies end up having a need. Maybe he becomes the platoon partner for Brandon Marsh at midseason or something like that. Now that's being aggressive with training him in left field, but he seems like he's a pretty good athlete. Some guys take to it. We'll see. I don't know. But do you get a sense, Justin, like how do you think this affects I'm talking about it like it's happened. Can the Phillies make a move like this with Aidan Miller in mind? Like, are they factoring that into the equation here, do you think?
Well, I think they definitely have Aidan Miller in mind. You can tell just like from that quote I read earlier from Dombrowski that I feel like there's a little more, not just like, oh, they're all another year more developed kind of thinking, but also that there's a sense of urgency now, I think, with what the Phillies need. And it's like, all right, well, it's time for this farm system to start producing. And we all know that it's got some guys near the top who, maybe 5 guys that people have some attachment to, and then there's some drop off. There's a steady drop off, and then perhaps down in the very low minors where guys are a bunch of years away. So with that being the case, it's like, yeah, well, we got to get these guys going and hope that we hit on all 3 of these big names that you could potentially see come out of the farm system this year, because they really matter for this team's near future and could also impact the more distant future too. And Miller, of course, has now usurped Andrew Painter's number 1 spot in the organization, according to some evaluators. So that's a very intensely valuable guy for a team that's been trying to like really lock down some kind of infield picture of the future. I feel like Bichette is going to throw a monkey wrench into whatever plans they had for Miller moving forward, and I'll be very curious to see how they adjust, because I don't think it means they'd want to get rid of him. I think that's what we're talking about, moving guys like Stott and Bohm, because that's a much more realistic idea. I think they have much more invested in Miller, and they have much more interest in watching him develop, and I think he has a higher ceiling, obviously, than Alec Bohm would, at least, and Stott at this point. I'm also down on his offensive ceiling as well. So I think at the end of the day, yeah, I want Miller to be part of this picture, but that's the thing about making moves like this, is that it kind of scatters things. And if the Phillies do sign Bo Bichette after, like, at this time last week, we were saying it definitely wasn't going to happen. It's kind of like they're just flipping the table over, and you got to just, you're going to have to pivot, because we're going to see exactly, we're not going to be wondering very long what they're going to do next, because they're going to have to do something, before the start of the season. So yeah, I hope this doesn't completely scuttle Aidan Miller's chances here, but you're right. If he has to do something like learn the outfield, hey, I mean, Trey Turner might be in the same boat.
Yeah, and that's the other thing, Liz. Maybe next year that's just what they do. They just decide to say to Trey, and we'll have to see how the 26 season plays out defensively for Trey, but maybe 27 is the season. It's Aidan Miller time at shortstop, or Bichette goes to shortstop, it's Aidan Miller time at second, or Bohm, they keep Bohm and he becomes a free agent. It's Aidan Miller time at third. There's no way he's not a starter in 2027 for this team. 26, I think, is kind of up in the air. And I think it's going to be, if that happens, if Bo Bichette is a Philly at some point here in the next few days, I think the ripple effects for Aidan Miller, it lessens the pressure on him to have to be ready soon, but it also does muddy the waters a little bit for him.
And I think, for me, that's exciting, because the Phillies have had this
Same
plan
here.
and they've been sticking to it over and over. And it would be nice to see what they can do with, something else. Like, we need to make other plans for these guys. And I think signing Bichette would actually open up a lot of doors for them, as far as there are now so many options that we have with keeping Miller and maybe trading him down the line. If he continues to hit well and he's great at shortstop, they've got a surplus. I'm not advocating for the trading of Aidan Miller. Please put down your phones. But I am saying that it allows the Phillies to think broader and further into the future, because, just like it muddies the waters a bit for Aidan Miller, it also gives him, I think, a greater opportunity to, become the player that he can be.
Let's move on and talk a little bit about JT Realmuto, because this has all come about because JT Realmuto has not signed a contract with the Phillies. The reports are that the Phillies have a contract offer out, obviously not to JT Realmuto's liking, but he also obviously hasn't found a deal anywhere else with anyone. What is he asking for? Is what I'm really, I would love to know what JT Realmuto's agent is telling him he wants right now. And, I initially thought, maybe they're just trying to play chicken with JT Realmuto. That does not seem to be what is happening here with the Phillies. So with an offer already out there, I mentioned this at the top of the show, with an offer already out there, it'll be very interesting to see what's going on with Realmuto, because the reporting also with him is that there's no market for him right now. There's no team that appears, he's not connected to anyone right now. There does not appear to be, and he's by far the best catcher on the free agent market here. The Phillies, he is so valuable to them, not just because of, he's been a good offensive player for them and because he's been a mainstay of this team for the last few years. He really is valued by the entire pitching staff. This Phillies team is built on starting pitching. It's their bullpen has been very good, and a lot of that has been because of JT Realmuto. That's what you hear inside the Phillies organization, is that they value him because he is so good with the pitchers. They've gotten so used to working with him. Christopher Sanchez, Jesus Luzardo, Zach Wheeler, Aaron Nola, when Aaron Nola used to be good, have always been complimentary of JT Realmuto. So losing him would be big. And I just wonder, what if he called Dave Dombrowski tomorrow and said, okay, I'll take your offer, whatever it is. Is there any way either of you guys see JT Realmuto making a phone call and telling Dave he wants to take a deal, scuttling anything with Bo Bichette? Like, would that scuttle the Bo Bichette stuff entirely right then and there?
No, I don't think so. They're free to just
Are
say,
we seeing
thanks.
Are we seeing a lot that, like, signing the two of them is less likely, right? Like, that's kind of the idea here. It's that you're choosing one or the other.
Whatever Realmuto's market ends up being, I mean,
But that's what I'm saying. That, whatever the holdup is out there for him, there's not enough good catchers for each team to have a good catcher. And obviously some teams are, like, making do in some other ways, getting what they need from other positions, but really there is what feels like a shortage of catching options out there. So for it to be this quiet on him does make you wonder what is staple
happening
to that question or to that the offer or whatever. Like, what is he really What's making this such a, and maybe there's just conversations happening and they're happening very, very quietly and we're not hearing them. I don't know. But this feeds into another concern of mine for the Phillies that Bo Bichette doesn't really impact, which is going back to the starting rotation. Mentioned that Nola's turning 33 this year, and Aaron Nola's just not a pitcher you can trust anymore. Who knows what's going to happen with Zach Wheeler? Who knows what Andrew Painter's going to look like? Ranger Suarez is, by all estimations, out the door. So that leaves you with two functioning pitchers that are, you think you can expect pretty close to what you got last time for. But obviously your starting catcher of the last 5 years plays a key role in your rotation. And John, you were just kind of saying this, but like this is guys that not just like who've been thrown to him, but he's making game plans with and spending time with. And like that rapport is really important. So it doesn't make me less excited to have Bo Bichette instead of JT Realmuto, but it does make me wonder how much of this team gets ripped out if Realmuto goes. Like, it's not just the catching position. It might also impact the effectiveness of an already potentially weakened starting rotation, too. So you got to be a little careful and mindful of that, but the Phillies just seem so ready to throw in with this Bichette stuff that I guess they're just not. That makes me a little less worried about it, that if you're willing to just go with Bichette and Victor Caratini or something. But there will be losses incurred losing Realmuto, even if Bichette is the, quote unquote consolation prize.
And I just wonder if it gets to a point where Realmuto comes back to the Phillies on a 1-year deal.
That's what I'm thinking. What if Bichette what if they get Bichette and then Realmuto's like, okay, you know what? I've got too much FOMO. I'm going to back off.
Yeah.
That's what I think is going to happen, actually. That's what I think. Because he could call Dombrowski right now and be like, I want a contract. Let's do it. And Dombrowski's going to be like, we got something going right now. We need a couple of days. Like, you've had this deal for a while. We need some time.
And Todd Zalecki reported on their podcast, the Philly Show podcast on Monday that came out that no deadline was set by Dave Dombrowski. They have an offer out, but they did not give a deadline for Realmuto to sign. So that's again, and they were kind of speculating. Once you offer a contract, I guess you could pull it back. You could pull a contract back, but that isn't usually how it's done. That's usually not done that way.
The Phillies have done such a great job of making themselves an organization where guys know, come here and you can get paid. Like, come here and we'll take care of you. Like, they're definitely a great. It feels like they have a great reputation among free agents. Pulling a contract back like that might tear down some of that goodwill.
Yeah, I don't think
or a
they
lot
would
of
do
it.
that. But the Phillies payroll, it has its limits, I think, and so it's hard to see how both of those guys come back. But I think they've also gone down this Bo Bichette road far enough that I think you got to see it through. Because if all of a sudden the next alert we get is Philly signed JT Realmuto and they say we're done, but that's not gonna go well here in the Delaware Valley. But on the other hand, you get that alert that they signed Bo Bichette, and now you're trading people. The town is suddenly feeling a lot different about this baseball team. And I think, kind of as we're wrapping up here, like that's really what I think is, I don't know if it's a driving force, but John Middleton listens to the fan base. We know that he does. And part of being an owner is getting your fan base excited about the team. And I've also talked about the need to mix things up in this roster for the psychology of it. Like these guys, if you bring all the same guys back, they're going to come in with all the same baggage and all of the same history and all of the same this and all of the same that, all of the same questions. You insert Bo Bichette and you get a new catcher in here and you've got some young prospects in here. Suddenly there's enough different that it feels different. Things are looking a little bit different. And maybe you got a ticked off Bryce Harper in the mix, who maybe was feeling complacent the last couple of years. Things are popping a little bit here. Now you're certainly more uncertain at the catcher position, probably. You're more uncertain with the starting pitching. I mean, there's positives and negatives to that, but I think that's one of the other, if you're looking at like a non-analytical, non-on the field reason that the Phillies would do this, it's because the fan base would bring an excitement surrounding the team that frankly hasn't been there since they lost to the Dodgers, and everybody just assumed, oh, they're going to bring back JT and they're going to bring back Kyle, and it's probably about get a bullpen guy and that's it. Oh, Dallas Garcia, oh boy, it's going to be a totally different feel to things after that. So I don't know. It's going to be hard for them to not do it at this point.
You're going to feel real stupid at the end of April when Kyle Schwarber's hitting 160 and Bo Bichette's hitting 220 and Adolis Garcia's hitting 380 with like 6 home runs. You're going to feel very stupid. And that is it. That is,
I'll be happy to feel.
That is the one hot month he has for the rest of the season.
That's right. From May.
I think you're right. I don't think any of us forgot, but it bears repeating that like the appeal of change on this level, it isn't that it really wasn't that it's like required for this team to come out and make the postseason again. This team could start with Realmuto and not Bo Bichette and make the postseason again. They also might just like be the Braves of 2026 and just be in the state they're in and then just incur enough bad luck to not factor into it. But I think at the end of the day, what a lot of people were referring to is that there just seems at this point to have been some bad air, some stale air in that locker room. And it was time to just kind of like freshen things up a bit. Again, we're talking about the Bichette thing like it's already happened. It has not happened.
It hasn't.
I'm saying that for myself as much as everyone else.
Yeah.
But I do think that's a critical part of this, and it's a critical part now at this point with like as many years as these guys have played together. So it's not change just for the sake of change. it would be healthy, productive change for the sake of making the team better in new ways.
Well, I think it's a good time to go to some final thoughts here. I was really hoping as we were talking here over the last hour, I've been keeping an eye on the tweeter. Just trying to see if the alert would flash up and we could react to it in real time, but that has not happened. But I'm encouraged by the radio silence because again, I think that means that wheels are in motion here. But we will see.
We can spend the rest of tonight watching Aaron Rodgers get ground into a fine paste.
Oh boy, yeah,
that'll be just
not
as
good.
fun.
So the last thing before I go, do you guys think
I'm ready to watch it?
Do you guys think this gets wrapped up this week, one way or the other? I do.
Based on the momentum this has, I feel like, I mean, this is either going to come together or come apart. Within the next week or so, I wouldn't be surprised at all. I mean, this is just an example of how it can be nothing, and then suddenly something happens at what feels like breakneck speed, and the Phillies suddenly have a very different offseason.
I think it happens Tuesday.
I do. Tomorrow, my goodness.
I think they got to make decisions. I think they want to make decisions, and they got to make decisions. And who'd have thought Don Mattingly as bench coach was the catalyst for it all?
Hey, Kevin Long brought Kyle Schwarber here. Don Mattingly could bring Bo Bichette here. I mean, who knows? Who knows what new coach mentor will bring the next superstar to Philadelphia? That's who we got to get. We got to get the guys from like the 90s who are coaches now, and they bring all the talent with them.
Gary Reedus is your bench coach. He's going to be bringing over all.
John, now's your time to thrive, baby.
I got you.
Sign Manny Machado.
Baseball's bench coach era, where bench coaches just have a ton of influence and sway.
Yes,
Major League Baseball has always been a bench coach league, right? I mean, it's always revolved around the bench coach. We all know that. This is not unusual.
The Phillies manager is a bench coach. Their bench coach is a bench coach. I mean, They're just swimming in bench coaches.
So many bench coaches. A lot of bench coaching going on
in
Philadelphia.
All the players are here. All the players followed him here. I don't know what to tell you.
That's right. All right, let's wrap up with some final thoughts. Liz, let me come to you first. Final thoughts.
I was a guest on the Philadelphia Sports Table podcast just today, Monday. You can find them on Blue Sky. I don't know if they're on Twitter anymore, but you can also find them on Apple Podcasts and anywhere you get podcasts. I always love going on there with Jeff Warren. They are a super fun bunch. Please download and listen. They're great, and I had a good time talking to them. And I didn't repeat myself on this podcast. It's all new stuff.
Jeff and the boys are awesome. Philadelphia Sports Table is a highly recommended podcast. We've all been regulars on that podcast. They're fantastic. They do, and they've been around forever, so they know what they're doing.
Yes,
Justin, final thoughts.
A couple of things. Summer of the Cheap Wieners is out next month. You can pre-order it now from Brookline Books. New Dirty Inning being recorded this week finally. The Dirty Inning is back for our off-season ticking clock until baseball comes back again. This one is going to be about a game from 1888 against the Washington Senators, a team we don't talk about for some reason a whole lot on the Dirty Inning. So I'm happy to do a Washington Senators, Philadelphia Phillies breakdown of a game from 1888 starring a guy named Charles Buffington.
Oh, yeah.
I like Charles. I like that.
That's the draw. And also, the Baseball Prospectus Annual is finally that time of year, folks, and it has shipped. The 2026 Baseball Prospectus Annual has gone off to the printer, so if you have ordered it yet, you can order it from the distributor directly, or you can order it from Bookshop, Amazon, Barnes & Noble. All of these links to order it can be found at the Baseball Prospectus website. It is a industry staple full of authors you know and don't know, all of whom are skilled and bring you the most informed reference material of every individual season at the beginning of each year. And this year's, will be in your hands soon. Unfortunately, there is a Yankees player on the cover this year. I don't have any control of that. I apologize, but it is an Aaron Judge year for the annual, unfortunately.
On. Of all of the good players, they had to put Aaron Judge.
Well, I made up for it by writing an essay about the Washington Nationals and comparing them to the death and funeral of George Washington.
Yes.
If you needed a reason to pick up the Baseball Prospectus Annual, there you go.
It's right there.
It's right
You
there.
got it.
Black and white, clear as crystal. All right, everybody, that's going to do it for this edition of Hittin' Season. And a reminder, everybody, watch the Hittin' Season YouTube on a podcast on YouTube. I jumped the gun there, but go over to WHYY's YouTube channel and subscribe. You'll get all of the Hittin' Season podcasts here during the offseason. Every roundtable is uploaded to YouTube, so you can watch it on your smart TV or on your computer or your tablet or your phone. You can also just listen to us, as most of you have done historically, on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever it is you get your podcasts. And if you wouldn't mind, leave a 5-star rating and a review. You can also email us here at Hittin' Season. All you got to do is send an email to hittinseason@billypenn.com. The best comments, voice memos you record on your phone and send along to us with questions or anything else, we'd be happy to play on the show and answer them. And we owe you guys a mailbag at some point here soon, too, this offseason. But hopefully we'll be coming to you next time with some Bo Bichette news. So keep your ears and eyes to the tweet deck over the next few days, folks. That'll do it for this edition of Hittin' Season. Thanks for tuning in. We'll talk to you next time right here on Hittin' Season.